Welcome to Study Time, a televised home learning program produced by Rwanda Basic Education Board.
Hello students, welcome to TV Learning Programs. I'm Agri Teacher of Entrepreneurship. Today I'm going to learn with the Senior 1 students. And we are still on Unit 7, which is Business Growth. Our today's lesson, my dear students of Senior 1, we are going to discuss the indicators of business growth. The indicators of business growth. That is what we are going to talk about in our today's lesson. Then I expect you, my dear students of Senior 1, to be able, towards the end of the lesson, to be able to explain the indicators of business growth or the indicators of business success. But before I take you into our today's lesson, I have a question that I want us to revise together. I have a question that I want us to revise together so that we can revise together. And the question is, mention the constraints of business growth in your country. We just mentioned the constraints of business growth in your country. That is a question that I want us to discuss together, my dear students of Senior 1. Now, mention the constraints of business growth in your country. What is a constraint? A constraint is something that prevents a business from growing or from succeeding. Factors limiting business growth. What makes a business, what stops a business from being successful, or what stops a business from growing and expanding in size? That is a constraint. I think you remember, learners, what we learned in the previous lesson. In the previous lesson, we learned about the constraints of business growth. Do you still remember those constraints that we learned about in the previous lesson? That is what we are going to mention, what we learned out in the previous lesson. Now, one of the constraints of business growth, one of the constraints of business growth, constraints of business growth, constraints of business growth include the following. Constraints. The constraints of business growth. The constraints of business growth. Now, one of the constraints of business growth, what limits a business from growing or expanding, the first constraint is poor handling of customers. Poor handling of customers. Poor handling of customers. Poor handling of customers. That is the first constraint. When customers of a business are not treated well, they are not handled well, they are not cared. You own a business and you don't care about your customers. You don't care for your customers. You don't treat them well. Now, this will discourage the customers to keep on buying products from your business because you don't treat them well. You don't handle them well. Now, they will start buying products from other businesses, and at the end, you will lose customers and you will not be able to sell more products and increase the sales and generate profits, which can help your business to succeed. Now, one of the constraints of business growth is poor handling of customers, not treating well the customers of the business. The second constraint of business growth is lack of proper record keeping. Lack of proper record keeping. Lack of proper record keeping. Lack of proper record keeping is also a constraint of business growth. lack of proper record keeping. Now, record keeping is keeping information. Record keeping is keeping information by writing it down or storing it in a computer. Now, when a business does not keep its records, like there are transactions which are taking place in the business and those transactions are not recorded, it will be difficult for a business to track its performance, to know whether it is generating profits, whether it is making profits, or it is incurring losses, because it does not keep the records. Now, this will be difficult. This will be difficult to know the performance of the business, and this may also act as a constraint of business growth, because you can't know whether how much profits the business is generating, because you don't keep records. Then, the next constraint of business growth, the next constraint of business growth is lack of enough market. Lack of enough market. Lack of enough market. Lack of enough market, or low demand. Or low demand. Or low demand. Now, lack of enough market is also a constraint of business growth. Lack of enough market. When a business has few customers, like there are few customers who buy products from the business will not be able to produce, sell more goods, and generate more profits, which can help a business to be successful. Now, lack of enough market or limited market, low demand of business products, customers are few, the business will not be able to sell more products and increase the sales and generate more profits, which can also hinder a business from growing or succeeding. The next constraint of business growth is poor management of business stock. 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 Now, poor management of business stock also acts as a constraint of business growth. When stock of the business, the goods available for sale, if the stock of the business is not well managed, even the employees of the business may steal that stock of the business, and this may lead a business may incur losses because the stock of the business is being stolen by the employees of the business because stock is not managed. Like if a business has stores where they store their products, and what gets out from the store is not recorded. Is not recorded. Now, this will be difficult to know, to manage the stock of the business. Now, when stock of the business is not well managed, even the employees of the business, because there is no management of stock, they may steal stock, they may steal business stock, and the business may incur losses which will prevent a business from growing or expanding because the stock is not well managed by the business. The next constraint of business growth is misuse of business finance. Misuse of business finance. Misuse of business finance. Misuse of business finance. Misuse of business finance is also a constraint of business growth. Misuse of business finance. When finance of the business is not well managed, is misused. You own a business, but you use the capital of the business or finance of the business for your private issues, for your private gains. Now, the business will lack finance to keep on operating because finance of the business is supposed to cater for business activities, all business operations. Now, when finance of the business is used for private issues or for private gains, the business will lack finance, and this will be difficult for a business to keep on operating, and this will limit a business from succeeding or from expanding. The next constraint of business growth is poor technology. Poor technology. Poor technology. Poor technology. Poor technology. When a business is using poor techniques of production, a business will not be able to produce more goods, sell more goods, and generate more profits, which can help a business from succeeding. And when a business is using poor technology, a business may produce even poor quality products, which cannot attract more customers to buy the business product, so that the business is able to sell more and generate more profits, which can help a business to grow and succeed. Now, poor techniques of production used by the business prevents a business from growing or succeeding. The next constraint of business growth is insecurity. 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 Now, when a business is operating in an area where there is no peace, there is insecurity, there is instability, this will limit production. The business cannot be able to produce more goods and sell more and generate more profits, which can help a business to grow and expand because of insecurity. The last constraint of business growth is inadequate finance. Inadequate finance. Inadequate finance. Inadequate finance. You know, business finance, that is the amount of money available to a business to finance its activities, to facilitate its operations or activities. Now, lack of enough business finance, it will be difficult for a business to grow and expand when a business does not have enough finance to facilitate its operations. Now, those are the constraints or the factors that limit the business from growing or expanding. Then, our today's lesson, we are going to discuss about the indicators of business growth. Indicators. And what is the meaning of the word indicator? Indicator. Indicator. The meaning of the word indicator, we are looking at the signs. What are the signs of business growth? Indicator. An indicator is a sign. An indicator is a sign of an economic activity. A sign showing the level of economic activity. An indicator is a sign showing the level of economic activity. Now, indicators of business growth. What are the signs that portray a business is growing or succeeding? Signs, the indicators. What shows? What are the signs that show a business is growing or expanding or a business is succeeding? That is what we are going to look at. The signs or the indicators of business success or business growth. One of the indicators of business growth is increase in volume of sales. Increase in volume of sales. An increase in sales volume necessitates increase in assets and profits, hence an indicator to business growth. And what are sales? What are sales? Sales. What are sales? Now, sales is the amount of goods sold at a given time. Sales is the amount. Sales is the amount of goods. Sales refer to the amount. All sales is the amount of goods, is the amount of goods sold, is the amount of goods sold in a given time. the amount of goods, or sales refer to the amount of goods. Sales is the amount of goods sold in a given time. Sold in a given time. Now, when a business is selling more goods, when a business is selling more goods, a business will be able to generate more profits. And that indicates that a business is growing because it sells more goods to its customers, or to its customers. Now, the business selling more goods to the customers. Now, when a business is selling more goods to the customers, this indicates that a business is growing or it is expanding in size. The next indicator of business growth is increase in the level of profits. Increase in the level of profits. And what are profits? What are profits? What are profits? Now, profit is income that remains after all expenses, after settling all expenses. Profit is income. Profit is income. Profit is income that remains. Profit is income that remains. Profit is income that remains after, is income that remains after settling, is income that remains after settling, is income that remains after settling all expenses. After settling all expenses. After settling all expenses. Now, when a business has cleared all the expenses, a business has paid off all the expenses, the amount of money that remains after expenses have been cleared, all have been paid off, that is what we call a profit. Because to get a profit, we get the total revenue minus the total cost to get a profit. Because revenue, that is the income, the amount of money received by the business after selling its goods and services. Now, to get a profit, you get the total revenue, the income generated by the business, minus the expenses incurred. Now, what remains is a process. What remains is a profit. Now, a profit is that income that remains after settling all expenses of the business. Now, if a business is generating more profits, the profits of the business, the profits earned by the business, the profits are increasing. The business is generating more profits. This indicates that there is business success. The business is growing or the business is expanding in size. The next indicator of business growth is increase in number of branches. Increase in number of branches. Now, a growing and a successful business enterprise is likely to open up many branches in most parts of the country in order to satisfy its growing customer base. Now, when a business is able to establish more branches in different parts of the country, this indicates that a business is expanding in size because it is able to open other branches in all parts of the country. This will indicate, it is a sign to show that a business is succeeding or the business is expanding. The next indicator of business growth is a growing customer base or market share. A growing customer base or market share. And what is market share? Market share. The meaning of the word market share. Market share. Market share. Market share is a percentage of consumers that a business has captured, that a business is serving. Now, market share is the percentage. Market share is the percentage. Market share is the percentage. Market share is the percentage of consumers. Market share is the percentage of consumers that a business has captured. All that a business is serving, market share. Now, if a business is serving a big number of customers, a bigger percentage of customers, this shows that it is a sign to show that a business is growing or expanding, because a business is able to serve a big number of customers. Now, it is a sign to show that, or an indicator to show that a business is succeeding or a business is growing or expanding when it is serving a big number of customers. The next indicator of business growth is increase in stock. Increase in stock. The more stock the business possesses, it is a factor to indicate business growth and its success. Now, when a business is able to sell more stock, when a business has more stock to sell, because stock, that is the goods available for selling. Now, more stock possessed by the business, when a business is possessing more stock, the goods available for sale by the business, when a business has more stock, it is an indicator or a sign to show that a business is expanding, or a business is growing, or a business is succeeding. When it has more goods available for selling, that is a sign to show that a business is growing or expanding. The next indicator of business growth is increase in assets for the business. For example, increase in machines, buildings, and equipment are indicators of business growth. And what is an asset? Increase in assets of the business. What is an asset? What is an asset? An asset is anything of value that can be converted into cash. An asset is anything of value. An asset is anything of value, that can be converted, into cash, that can be converted 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 into cash. That is an asset. Anything of value, or a resource of value that can be converted into cash. Now, when the assets of the business have increased, the business assets are increasing, it is an indicator to show that a business is growing or succeeding. The next factor of business growth is increase in the number of employees. When there is increase in the number of workers being employed in the business, it indicates that a business is growing and expanding. And employees, these are people who are paid to work for an organization or work for another person. Employees, people who are paid to work for an organization or for another person. Now, increase in the number of employees, it is an indicator to show that a business is growing. When a business is using more number of employees, more number of workers, it portrays that a business is succeeding, or a business is growing, or a business is expanding, when it is able to use a big number of employees. Then the last indicator of business growth is improvement in technology used in a business. Improvement in technology used in a business. For example, using efficient technology such as advanced machines in production. And what is technology? Technology is scientific knowledge put into practical use to solve problems or invent useful tools. Now, when a business is using advanced techniques of production, the business is using better techniques of production, like capital-intensive technology. A business is able to produce more goods, sell more goods, and generate more profits, which is an indicator of business growth. Now, improvement in technology, when technology of the business is improving and it is using better techniques of production, which help a business produce more goods, this indicates that a business is growing or a business is expanding. Now, those are the signs, all indicators of business growth. Signs or indicators of business growth. My dear students of Senior 1, before I end our today's lesson, I have one question for assignment. As you're writing down the question, I can read through the question. The question is, explain the indicators of business growth in your country. Let me repeat the question. The question is, explain the indicators of business growth in your country. That is the question for the assignment. Thank you, my dear students of Senior 1. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We meet next time. Thank you.